Hello everybody. So we are continuing with the Vajrasattva practice and the four opponent powers. And today we are moving on to the fourth opponent power, which is the power of determination. And if you're like me and you need these little tricks to remember things, this is the fourth R. There's the power of reliance, the power of regret, the power of the remedy or the power of remedial action, and the power of resolve. So this is where we're really making a strong determination to refrain from the negativity that we've brought up to purify in the practice, and really making a strong intention to transform our minds. So, and also too is that, what are we going to promise Vajrasattva that we are going to refrain from doing in the future? This is kind of where the rubber meets the road, or we walk or talk. This is very important piece of the practice. And the strength of our resolve or our determination is based on the power of our regret. So, it's so important that we understand that the actions in the past have caused ourselves suffering and others suffering. So we go into the past, bring that up into our minds. And then also, as we've heard over the past few weeks, we have to understand the law of causality in our actions, and to know that there is still suffering to be had in the future unless we purify. And that we really have to get this on some deep level, and have not only a deep heartfelt sense of regret for what we've done, but also a concern about the suffering results that we're going to experience in the future. And on this, so we've got the past, we bring it into our minds, the future concern, bring it into our minds, and on that, the present determination to refrain from this particular negativity then stands on that basis. Because if the regret isn't strong and heartfelt and isn't real in our own minds, not only are we not going to be successful in purifying the negative action, but we're not going to have enough oomph in our practice to then make the determination to refrain from the negativity in the future. The power of determination also focuses on that third karmic result, which is the result similar to the cause regarding our behavior. So the behavior that we have habitually committed over and over again, bringing forth from past lives, that propels us to create these negative actions, that is so habituated that they seem to have a mind of their own, and that they really have quite strong propensities that we have in our life, that they're kind of out of our mouths or they're out of our bodies before we even realize it, and that many of the teachers have said this is a very important point because this is how we create the future suffering. So the power of determination really takes care of this in a very strong way. So then we'll go to the practice, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the power of determination. So first paragraph, we address Vajrasattva. Through ignorance and delusion, I have broken and degenerated my commitments. O spiritual master, be my protector and refuge, Lord, holder of the Vajra, endowed with great compassion, in you, the foremost of beings, I take refuge. Now, I've read this paragraph quite a bit in the past few weeks, and I find this to be an extremely powerful and clear statement of fact. And this is one of the powers and one of the results of doing purification, is that your mind gets clear on understanding what is the cause of suffering. And so what it's saying here is that ignorance is the primary cause of our suffering. And there's the ignorance that is that doesn't know the consequences of our actions. We basically don't know what to cultivate and what to abandon. We haven't a clue. That's the first kind of ignorance. And then the other one is this conjuring up or grasping onto this sense of I that is solid and permanent and eternal and exists from its own side. And we spent, since beginningless time, apparently, defending and protecting and satisfying this I that's somewhere inside this body and mind that we grasp onto, that's sort of running the show. And that the things outside of this I, also existing permanently and solidly and concretely, we grasp at them as either the cause of the happiness of this I, or we grasp at them because we believe that they are what is causing the suffering of this I. We are not seeing things clearly definitely at this point. That's the ignorance. And then the delusion are, as a result of this self-grasping ignorance, then the anger, the attachment, the deception, the ill will, the jealousy arise. So the wrong conception is then exaggerated by the afflictions that arise in our mind, and then we're compelled by the ignorance, by the afflictions, then to break and degenerate our commitments, to create the actions, to commit the actions that we've been talking about for the past few weeks, the 10 non-virtues, any of the precepts that we have kept, the monastic training precepts, our lay precepts, our bodhisattva vows, our tantra vows, all broken because of this self-grasping ignorance, the afflictions, and then the karma that we are propelled to do. So we are getting, from doing this practice and saying this sentence, we are taking responsibility and understanding the second noble truth. If it's intellectually, we're getting the idea that we have this, we are creating our own suffering due to the ignorance and the afflictions. Okay, so here we go. So we've got the clarity and the wisdom. So now what do? Second sentence. O spiritual master, be my protector and refuge. Lord, holder of the Vajra, endowed with great compassion, you the foremost of beings, I take refuge. So here we go back to refuge. Okay, we took refuge in the beginning of the practice, and we are now back to taking refuge, understanding that Vajrasattva is the embodiment of the 3 jewels. He has all the qualities of all the Buddhas of the 10 directions. He has all the powers of the Buddha. He has the realizations and the cessations of the Dharma in his own mind. And that we have, I sort of see our mind at this point in the practice with this clarity. The wisdom mind is arising. It's somewhat like a compass. And that compass is now pointing its direction, its needle in the direction of Vajrasattva, who's sort of like a north star. And so we go back to recommitting, remembering, recollecting why we take refuge, why we go in the direction of seeking the guidance of one who knows, one who has freed himself from defilements, one who has cultivated all of his good qualities. And so this really empowers our determination not to do the negativities again, because now we've got our mind steered in a virtuous direction that's going to really empower and enable us to keep those promises. And the other thing that I've been thinking about is that, because Susan asked the question, she said, why do we take refuge with Vajrasattva? We've already done in the beginning, is that I happen to think that there are never too many times that we could possibly take refuge in the course of the day. I mean, as far as my life goes, I am off course a lot during the course of the day. And by taking refuge, it's like I'm doing these course corrections, kind of getting my bearings, thinking about the qualities of the Buddha, thinking about something in the Dharma that I've remembered, an antidote or a teaching that'll bring my mind back to virtue. And so taking refuge as many times in the day as you can, as you want, as you remember, is just another way to empower the virtue in our minds. I really don't think that Vajrasattva is up there going, all right, this is the 7th time you've taken refuge. All right already, I heard you the first time. He's not going to be saying, he's going to be so delighted because he sees our efforts to turn towards virtue. And as we do this practice, I've discovered over the years is that the understanding of this statement about what the cause of our suffering is and what our true source of refuge is deepens. And it really gets quite clear and very, very strong. And so we hold that for today. And then when we continue in the next few times that we meet, we'll go into the power of this promise that we make to Vajrasattva. How do we actually make this promise? And why do we make this promise to him? And we'll continue later on. In the meantime, be well.